made up. That's what they are.
Representative Flynn, so, you said that it would take 76 members of the House
No, 76 between the House
and the Senate.
You have 150, so
Right,
you have
I
to
got it.
have 76 votes to
So,
call.
What is your best estimation of that happening, of getting those 76?
I asked somebody yesterday, because I had several things that I thought should be included in a special session. And I asked actually somebody on my side of the aisle, and he said it's very unlikely that it will be expanded beyond the mandate, or beyond
Right.
what the scope is that the governor called for. Because you look at it, okay, we need to fix this, we need to fix this, we need to fix this, we need to fix this. Where do you stop? Where do you stop? Is this the most important thing? Or is it taking care of the most vulnerable in health and human services? See, most people don't realize how much money we spend in Montana on health and human services budget. You know, I tell somebody, do you think we spend 4 million? Do you think we spend 4 billion? Oh, can't possibly be 4 billion. No. That's what we spend.
I know, Kelly, I went to an economic council a couple years ago up at the Capitol, and I got a chance to visit with one of the ladies that did the fiscal analysis. She had a great way of summing it up of where our tax dollars go. She said, put it in terms of 80%, okay? 80% will come down to 3 things: education, medication, and incarceration. So you got 20% left in order to fund everything else that we need in this state. And when I'm hearing, you know, Sheriff Meehan talking about what he needs, I'm hearing the county commissioners, I hear you, Representative Friend Flynn. I mean, that's pretty difficult out of 20% to take care of an entire state. And look at the infrastructure we have in the state. We're huge. It's really difficult. I mean, I applaud you and I applaud all of you for trying to do the best that you can with what you have. And it is frustrating, because I saw it as a victim this last year. And, you know, I worked personally with Under Sheriff Harris and Sheriff Meehan, and, you know, it's like, hey, Craig, we've only got X amount of people, we've only got this we can do. I've dealt with mental health issues my whole life, being a former guidance counselor. I've seen it. It's very difficult. Unfortunately, it seems that we've got to, and I think Kelly, you'd probably agree, whatever side of the aisle you're on, I think we've got to a point in our society where people forget the term compromise, or being willing to work together. Certain things, I think we just dig our heels in the sand, and this is how we want it, we're gonna get it one way or the other. And the sad part is, we, as taxpayers, lose. And especially in a county like Broadwater, because I think, Brandon, you and I were talking one day, and I think, what did you say, the average per capita income in the city was
What was it?
14,000 or?
14 to 18 or something like that. I mean,
It's low.
it's really low.
And so you start taking that with what the median average income in Montana is, which is exceptionally low, and now you're talking taxes that go up anywhere from 15, I know some people in the 40s, 45% in this county.
Mine was 25.
Huh?
Mine was 25.
Mine was too.
Mine was 46. And I gotta talk to you about that.
I'll listen. I'll commiserate.
But, you know, it is frustrating for people. And if we're at that level of per capita income, it even makes it more hard on those people who are fixed incomes and trying to help them out. And then listening to Brandon with mental health issues. So if you're taking a deputy and sending somebody to St. Pete, that means we lose them for 6 hours. That means we've got one on duty, is that correct?
If you're lucky.
Yeah, if you're lucky. You know, so, I mean, I understand, it's a complex issue, and I agree with what Laura's saying, is that if you can reach out to colleagues on both sides of the aisle, on these mandates, I would be very appreciative, and I would encourage you once again, Kelly, if you could talk to your colleagues and across the aisle. I understand that maybe it's not good to go for the 76, but we are talking a budget here that's gonna affect everybody for 2 years.
Shelley, there's people across the aisle from you that got this going through. Are the people that elected them for these big raises on the taxes?
Well, I, across the aisle, I don't even know how to put this diplomatically.
I'm interested in that.
Luckily, we're a friendly group, so just say it. Just say
I
it.
will say most of the people across the aisle work in the public sector. And it would be my comment after 8 years, a lot of them do not understand how difficult it is to make net income, so that all of us can have the services we want. And, you know, I'd go in there and advocate, we, you know, at least have it so you pay a similar rate in property taxes with some kind of an increase. I think it's fair to have some kind of an increase. I think it should follow inflation. But is it right that it's 5 times inflation? 6 times, 10 times, 12 times? Yesterday, when I talked to the Legislative Fiscal Division, because it certainly has been on my mind. Certainly, physically, I'm not that great, but I can tell you, my mind is still pretty darn good. And I talked to them because I want to see where is the problem in Montana with, on the revenue side, even though we do have an increase in revenues, where is the shortfall? In a fully employed economy, which we have in Montana, there's almost no people that don't have jobs. Our increase in tax income, which is 60% of all we get in Montana is from individual income taxpayers, was 1.64%. That's what that went up. So here we are, supposedly in a fully employed economy, and we're not producing enough revenue. Well, where has our economy gone? Do we have more service workers, or do we have more in the high-paying sector? Well, we have more service workers. So their income is similar to what you guys are talking about. They're not producing that much in tax revenue. The higher paid jobs, the oil and gas jobs, the coal jobs, we don't have as many of those. We lost a lot of them with the oil and gas. Those guys, and we should know in this community, because in the past years, we've had many people working in the oil fields in North Dakota or in Montana. They were making, what, $80,000, $100,000 a year. So we substituted that worker for people like in my industry. I'm in the tourism industry besides the ranch industry, and we pay them $10 to $12 an hour. So who pays more in taxes? Well, of course they pay more on the other side. So, you know, I think, you know, we need to find a way to grow the economy where we have more of the workers going into those high-paying jobs, because that is exactly where the difference is. It's 1.64%, where the projection was following on the unemployment statistics and unemployment insurance and work comp. We should have been in there somewhere around 4.3%, and we were not. I asked them to give me a full explanation of it, and they couldn't do that yesterday. That being said, you know, the 40 million or whatever it is on property taxes, it's gonna be really hard to get that back from all of you, because the governor needs that to pay for all of the different things that he needs to have to pay for those state services. I don't think you're gonna get it back.
Well, and the other thing that really adds into this is you've already started on losing. Right now we have lost about 46% of the skilled labor in the United States of America. Within the next 5 years, you're gonna be up to right at 60% of those people are gonna be retired, all that. As a unit, you know, you talk to contractors everywhere. We cannot get the people to put in and go to work for these, and these are things that you do for 40 years. I've been a lineman for 40 years, right at 40 years. And, it's good money, it's good living. And plumbers, same thing. We are not getting, I mean, how many hamburgers in the lower jobs, can you fill in when you've got nobody on the upper end that's making the money? And it's just, we can't get people to go to work. I mean, I can't believe that the legislature doesn't see that. We're, all the trades are having a tough time.
That we had a dispatch position open for 5 months before we could fill it.
Yep.
But nobody's willing to do it. And, everybody's got, and it's not, this isn't anything on legislature, it's just society in general, is everybody has a sense of entitlement. Is that I'm gonna go to college and I'm entitled to an $80,000 a year job starting out. That's what they expect. That's what it's pushed upon. And it's not reality. And so, when it comes like ours, it's not the greatest pay. Benefits are good. I don't think I'm that difficult to work for. Maybe I am. I do look at myself in the mirror a lot, so. But those are things, we cannot find people with detention, corrections. You've seen the price statistics from the Department of Corrections. They can't keep a prison guard to save their lives. And if they do, they're there 3-4 years and they've gone out the road. So, I completely understand what Mike's saying, is that there's things out there that nobody's willing to do anymore, because it's easier just to wait for someone else, I guess, I don't know. But
Laura?
Yes.
After this meeting today, are you and the rest of the commissioners, Mike and Frank, are you guys gonna be reaching out to other commissioners across the state as well to compare as what's been talked about?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we've already started that. I was at an Agency on Aging meeting just a couple weeks ago, and Park County had already done this. The structure actually came from them. We were at a MACO conference, and what you were asking for, they are actually working on, and that is, we got a first draft with this, and I'll give you a copy of this, Craig.
Please, thank you.
But they're also working on an analysis of what counties can expect from the mandates to be hits on the budget. So we have that, exactly what you're looking for
Okay.
coming, and that is from MACO. So that is all the states, county commissioners coming together and saying, okay, what can we do to be more proactive on this?
Okay.
So,
And then,
yes.
Second follow-up question, are you and Mike and Frank then going to be contacting other legislators besides Kelly and voicing your concerns as well going into this special session?
Yes,
Okay,
that has already been
Okay.
done, more on email and phone,
right, okay.
but certainly I expect that there will be commissioners at the Capitol during the
Okay.
special session, asking the questions that we're asking today, and that is, just end the unfunded mandates. That's really our biggest message
Right.
right now. Yeah, thank you.
I have one other question for you, because I've read it several times, is that there's some legislators saying that Budget Director Villa's numbers are definitely off. I'm sure that he's probably minimizing quite a bit in expected revenue. Kind of pushes, Dan's an interesting guy, I'd say that. And so, how far off, how far off do you think he is?
Well, let me explain to everybody how the revenue estimate is derived, because I think a lot of people don't realize how that occurs. In the legislature, we have what's called the Legislative Fiscal Division. It's a nonpartisan division. And their job, one of their jobs is to look at all the different data nationwide and in Montana, and to recommend to the legislators as close as possible how much revenue that we would have, so we know how much we can spend. So they make a best guess is what they do, but it's based on a lot of data. And I've kept closely in contact with the Legislative Fiscal Division. And anybody can, whether they're a Democrat or Republican, you rely on them. No matter who's in charge, the Legislative Fiscal Division puts forth their best guess on an estimate and why. And I suppose that I've been in with them for days, going through each one of them, whether it's unemployment numbers, prices on cattle, wheat, housing starts, oil and gas prices. Almost anything you can imagine, they're trying to look at and make an estimate on how much that will be. It then goes to, they have the Revenue and Transportation Committee in November prior to the session, and they take a look at it, and then they can adjust that, and then that will go forward to first the House to take a look at. It actually came to my committee. This time I ended up chairing the Taxation Committee for probably at least over half the time, because the fellow was there that was the chair, had some other responsibilities with the special election, so he just wasn't there. So I ended up chairing it a lot, so I was intimately involved in making sure we knew how much money we could spend. They went to us, we took a look at some of those figures, and actually, we raised it by about $1 million. 1 million out of 10 billion. And the reason we did was we looked at cattle prices, which I am very knowledgeable about. And cattle prices, basically, they were looking at selling calves for about $1.50. Well, calf prices actually have gone up on the one side, and now it's about $1.60. So we're probably about right. Oil and gas, we thought it would come in somewhere around 51. It hovered down in there in the mid-40s. Now it's up there, what, $57? So we're not too far off there. The Legislative Fiscal Division was off on the individual income tax. It's the greatest share of the revenue side. The governor's office also puts out a revenue estimate. So they'll bring in their revenue estimate and they will defend their revenue estimate. This is was my fourth session. This is the first time the governor office came to the hearing on the revenue estimate, and their entire presentation was less than 10 minutes. It was less than 10 minutes. Everybody should ask, well, you know, if you knew something that somebody else didn't know, why didn't you bring it in there? They didn't defend it. Vila was up in a handful of minutes and down. And always before, he's been a great advocate, and they show, because they also have experts. So what we have is a situation where the revenue increase, because we did increase in revenue, is less than what the Legislative Fiscal Division said. And it is chiefly in the individual income tax side. The other one is in some theory that all you guys out here, probably it's all of you who are making all your money on capital gains, didn't take your capital gains this year, and you're just waiting for President Trump to get his tax passage in so you can all cash in on your capital gains. I'm not too sure that's happening in this room, but that's where they save some of that other money. And that one, if that's the case, if there are capital gains to be made someplace, that revenue actually would come in down the line. And that's what these experts, so-called, are saying, that money will come in. The individual income tax one, that's in there. They're projecting an increase. The increase was from 1.64. They're projecting off that base. They now think that'll be higher than the revenue estimates, as you're asking about, do look better going forward. We actually have a report in about 3 weeks that will show what they think it will be going forward. You know, I've watched in my 4 terms the governor's office be way wrong. Now I've watched the Legislative Fiscal Division apparently be wrong. They both made guesses. They both were wrong. So,
I know you had the session started, and one of the things that came up just prior, the day of our last sheriff's and peace officers meeting in Miles City, was an article that was put out in the Missoulian from Scott Larson, the director of the crime lab in Missoula. And one of those things in the discussion of budget cuts and everything else was from DOJ crime lab side of the house. And that was to start charging local jurisdictions for the testing. And for DUI kits, toxicology kits, and
Urine analysis.
urine analysis. Now, urine analysis, that doesn't mean anything to us. But in the grand scheme of things, if something like that comes down the pipe, I don't have a budget item for that. So that's gonna come out of my operations. And operations already thin anyways. So I guess that's another one of my frustration parts, is that we're gonna take something that is now being taken care of by the state, and we're gonna put it back over here in mid-budget session. And so, I know, you know, if you go to the private sector, a blood test is $85, $89 to have it tested over here. So, if I'm doing it at state level, what, you know, I have to go, what do I really wanna do? I mean, do I wanna spend this $89? I got a county attorney that says, yeah. I got a court system that says, we wanna see it. I have jurors in a jury box that wanna see this data. I don't have the funding for it, you know? So, you know, at what point do the local jurisdictions say, you know what, I can't provide this service anymore because I just don't have the funds? And I sit here and beat my chest and stomp up and down every year at budget time with the commission, and they're tired of it. But it's these things that I can't control, you know. The pathologist, the coroner, autopsy stuff. Dr. Dell, Dr. Kemp were there, it was $850 to $950, now we're at $1,500. You know, if you're on the eastern side of Montana without a crime lab, you're paying anywhere from $3,000 to $7,000 for an autopsy. So, you know, we got kind of lucky over here, but it's still those increases that come upon the state level that we're not prepared for down here. We don't have the funding for it. So I don't want this to be anything, I don't want it to sound like I'm just complaining to complain, but those are just small things that over the course of time actually get a fiscal note attached to it. And so, you know, I don't know if that's part of the discussion anymore. I was supposed to have a meeting with Scott Larson last Friday, and it got canceled due to the snow. So I don't know if it's still a topic or not, I don't know. But
Well, I hear you, and I hear from the local folks, and everybody here should be concerned. If the costs are put on us locally, and the state costs are also rising, where do we stop? Where does the buck stop? Because the state says they don't have the money, yet they're spending, remember, over 2.5 times inflation. Because inflation over the last 6 years is not 2% a year. It is not 2% a year. So that's at 32% in 6 years. Yet they shifted the costs locally. So the costs go up for everybody. And it can't go on. You know, everybody wonders, well, what happened to the $300 million surplus? You can't continue to spend faster than the money you have coming in. You cannot, or you run out of money. We ran out of money. We ran out of money. And when you run out of money, you have to do one of two things, as I've already said. You either have to cut costs or raise revenue. And who are you gonna raise revenue on in Broadwater County? You? You? Me? If the per capita income is even $20,000, are you gonna raise it on them? So those are big questions. They come down to us who vote, and certainly I will vote, and as you can see, I'm very shy when it comes to speaking in front of people. But I try to do the best I can, because I know in Broadwater County, I know that we don't have high per capita income. And any tax we put on, it was the gas tax. You know who the gas tax hurts in Broadwater County? Every single person who commutes. Every single person who relies on our sawmill, who relies on Graymont, relies on our sheriff, relies on our farmers and ranchers. People say, well, why didn't you vote for it? Well, that's why I didn't vote for it. And so I'm absolutely, when I go to the special session, I'm gonna be looking at the people that I represent. from the guys who make $12,000 a year to, I don't know, we might have somebody in Broadwater County that makes $80,000 a year, but darn few in the whole county.
We're actually not a poor county. What Craig said about the city of Townsend is right on. Townsend's per capita income is far below the national average or the state average. But if you take Townsend out, Broadwater County's per capita income is actually quite a ways above the national average, not even the Montana average, but the national average. We have an issue here that we need to work on where Townsend proper is making very little, but Broadwater County is actually one of the higher income earners in the state. So that dichotomy too is something that, you know, John, perhaps will be something you'll be having to work on. Something for you, Kelly, for the special session, certainly something for the commission and our other elected officials to be working on and partnering better with the city. Because, you know, when you get down to it, we're one county, regardless of the difference between the city and the county. But one of the things, Kelly and John both, that was an issue at the last session, and as a personal taxpayer, I hope we never ever see again, and everybody in this room should know about this. What we're doing with these meetings actually came from this, and again, they're going on all over the state, but this is an opportunity for the citizens to learn more and to see us communicating back and forth, because our Constitution guarantees the rights to participation, and open meeting laws are paramount and precious for us sustaining what we have. So Kelly, this was not you, and I understand you voted against these bills, but, and thank you for that, but legislators on both sides of the aisle, so there were Republicans involved, and I have no problem giving you names, and Democrats involved, both sides. I heard something yesterday, and the comment was, you enter Dante's 7th level of hell when the extreme right and the extreme left get together on anything. So what happened is there was a legal note attached to Senate Bill 95 that said Senate Bill 95 is contrary to the Constitution because it addresses a number of different issues. Our Constitution, in a way to engage the public and honor rights to participation in open meeting laws, allows for every bill to address one subject. Senate Bill 95 had like 18. So not only did Senate Bill 95 and House Bill 650, which was a companion bill to it, both address kitchen sinks. Everything you could throw into the sink was in these bills. But the legislative committees actually went behind closed doors, did their negotiating in private, came out to the open meeting during executive session where there is no public comment allowed, and passed policies into these bills. We actually had a constitutional attorney, Mike Malloy, do a analysis of what happened with both House Bill 650 and Senate Bill 95, and he came back and said the legislature did indeed violate the Constitution of the United States, or of the state of Montana. If our legislators violate the Constitution, that is quite possibly the worst thing they could do, period, because it harms the very foundation of who we are. So one of the things that we commissioners are going to be doing is talking to candidates and talking to legislators and letting them know that we are aware of what happened and that it is our demand that it never happen again. Those kinds of secret meetings are not okay for any one of us in this room, and absolutely not okay for any of the people in the state who didn't attend this meeting. So I guess that's the only thing I'm going to ask of you, John. Should you be elected, please do what you can to stop anything like that from happening again. Kelly, thank you for standing up against those bills, and thank you for not being involved in that. So, any questions on that?
Can I ask
Anybody?
Kelly one more? Kelly, is the special session just scheduled for 1 week?
The latest rumors say that we will finish probably in 1 week. We'll start on Monday with hearings, and they're hoping to be done on Thursday.
And then what's the cost for that special session?
Oh, about $500,000 a day on the first day, and then several $100,000 for each day after that. Startup costs are pretty high. Because we gotta remember, you gotta be paying me my $80 a day. But that is what it is. And I guess I would be pessimistic that it would be done in that short period.
Right, no, I just think that sometimes people forget that there is an astronomical
Yeah.
cost associated with that. They just assume we go in and, and do it and it's done and over.
Well, I think everybody knows, but some of the big issues are, of course, the firefighting costs. I mean, we did create a firefighting fund, which now I guess I kind of half jokingly say it's not really a firefighting fund, now it's become the slush fund. Because we as the legislature took your firefighting fund and we took $30 million and stuck it into something else. So now, of course, we had a bad fire season, and so we owe some money. And so we have to figure out how to fill up the firefighting fund, because we spent the firefighting fund for next year. So, unless there'll be no fires next year, we don't have any money.
Well, we don't have much for forest left, so.
Might,
They got a lot around
might
here.
snow
It's
all
already
summer.
burned.
Might snow all summer.
Then you'll need some more of those linemen.
I mean, is there a plan for DOC? I mean, I know there's so many components to that I know that talking with Sheriff McDermott and that contract over there with Mask is, kind of the conversation piece was, if they decide to go that route, we'll pay our fine or whatever it is to pay them back, and then we're gonna get rid of them. That's not part of the solution to the problem either, but, there's some scuttlebutt about Shelby and their contract, and that's, 660 inmates that would have to be relocated if that's the case, and, I mean, is there, what's the plan if those things happen?
Well, I just tell you what I have heard.
Okay.
In the material I get, the DOC had the lowest cut under Governor Bullock. I think it was 1.4%, but it was not 10%. He could have cut everything, and may still have to cut everything 10%. What I saw was that the DOC was 1.4%. As far as Shelby, what it is on Shelby is Shelby is a privately run prison, and basically the state is saying that they can take it over and perhaps not spend as much money. And what we have been doing is building up a fund so that the state could buy that facility. The Shelby prison has made an offer that if they will extend the contract, I believe it's 10 more years, that they will pay $30 million toward helping out our situation. And that could be one of the potential solutions. It could be. I know it is one of the things under consideration. That's as much as I know.
I guess the only thing I would say is, speaking for the Mental Health Local Advisory Council and as a member of the Center for Mental Health Governing Board, every time we cut some more mental health services, we create more crisis, which we push on to DOC. It is a vicious circle, you know that, but I want everybody else here to know that. It just is.
And many of you don't realize that the last session, actually the last two sessions, we've been able to do some really good things on
Yeah.
mental health. I mean, what we've done is try to get away from state mental health and more local. And many of us advocated for that. That really was a bipartisan choice to try to have more done locally.
And again, part of the difficulty, which is just the mechanics of the whole thing, is same thing as Wynn talks about. The big counties are equipped to really capitalize on that, and we small counties don't have the wherewithal to quite do that. But we're working on it.
Well, a prime example is the Journey Home in Helena, you know, community crisis center, just like the Hope House in Bozeman. Both have great attributes to the community, but unfortunately, if I take somebody there and they act out, they then call our office and say, we need one of your deputies up here to deal with your citizen who's in crisis. So, and I have to figure out a way to get one of my guys to get to Helena. And it's been to the point of, we need you to walk them across the hall. Are you kidding? You just had me drive 40 miles to walk this guy across the hall to a different room. Yeah. Okay? Not really what we had in mind. You know, so it was kind of, it kind of goes back to that thought process of here a few years ago, and I'm not really sure which one it was, of closing down majority of the detention centers across the state of Montana and having regional detention centers. Well, great, that works perfect for the agencies, those big 7 metropolitan areas that have that huge facility in it, because that's exactly where they would go. And it kills the small agencies such as ours, because I am then transporting every one of my people to and from the jail for court, for their medical, for everything else. So yeah, it's a great relief for the large counties, terrible for small Montana. And I think that's where my frustration, I've been on the board for Montana Sheriff's Peace Officer for 7 years now. Great, but you guys don't represent the whole populace. There's 56 sheriffs in the state. Most of us have small jurisdictions. We don't have the luxuries and the things that the major areas do. And I do get frustrated on some of the policies that come down the pike that work very well for Sheriff Devlin, for Sheriff Curry, Sheriff Beacon, and Sheriff Linders. However, they don't work well for me. And they don't work for sheriffs that are like me. So, you know, that's where, you know, I'd really like to see, and I just had a discussion with Sheriff Hamilton 2 weeks ago on this, is that, you know, when you look at recruitment retention, you look at operation costs, there's such an inconsistency. We're all doing the same job regardless. It's all public safety. It's all the same bad guys just floating from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. But what we're afforded to do our job is so much different. And it kind of falls on a thing, and I get frustrated because I don't think that as a sheriff, it should be a party line. You shouldn't have to go Republican or Democrat. Because the fact is that you work for the people regardless. And I think that just gets convoluted in a mess. And I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, I don't care if you're African American, Indian American, Latin American, I don't care if you're Irish American, Polish American, whatever you want to be, because that's how we address ourselves now by ancestry. I still have to treat everybody the same. You're a U.S. citizen, and that's how I look at it. So, but it would be nice to be able to do my job the same way as people in other jurisdictions. So that's a bigger problem, not necessarily for this discussion, but that's me venting. So.
Kelly, I have one more request of you. Department of Revenue just sent out a memo. Have you read it from Director Kadis?
I have not seen, what one are you talking about?
Thanks, Ann. Department of Revenue, with their cuts, are looking at cutting the mechanism that generates revenue, which doesn't make a lot of sense. So they've shut down a number of counties. Broadwater County is in sights. We're the second fastest growing county in the state to Gallatin County. Nobody wants to pay more taxes, but if revenue misses 100 new houses, the burden's gonna fall on the rest of us to pick up what they're not paying for themselves. So we need Department of Revenue's presence here to be catching that new construction, the new businesses, the new homes, so that the rest of us aren't paying their taxes. It's pretty basic theory. But what Director Kadis says is, we will implement programs to rely on the collection of information from taxpayers to determine what their taxes are. also doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So if you could advocate for us to keep our Department of Revenue here in Broadwater County, it helps the county citizens, it helps a lot of our departments, clerk and recorder is one, our sanitarian, our planning commission, I was just asking questions of DOR yesterday. So, if you have any say on that, we really do need to keep this office
I
open.
surely will. I see that the
Thanks.
offices that they're closing are in Powell, Granite, and Ponderay. not
And they
Broadwater.
also closed Jefferson County yesterday.
Did they?
That's extremely important to
And
us.
all of those are fast-growing counties.
Yeah. The premise doesn't make a lot of sense. It just doesn't. Thank you. And truly, thank you for all the work that you did on behalf of Broadwater County in the last session. I appreciate it. And John, thanks for coming. Thanks for being willing to learn our perspective of the legislature.
Yeah, unless there any other comments or anything, we thank everybody.
And Mike, thank you for showing up because the city is also part of the county and suffers the same fate, so. yeah.
We're in this together.
Thank you again.
Hey, Mike, if you have a second, I was in a meeting with League of Cities and Towns.
What's that?
I was in a meeting with Kelly from League of Cities and Towns. Another issue.
I know,
But
Right.
Secretary
I told
of State's
Susan,
office
I told Susan who
was
Gacy